Mr. Speaker, the Budget and Appropriation Committee went around the country to do public participation. And they ended up agreeing that they are going to use 2 billion shillings to allocate to those counties that they have visited, Mr. Speaker. That amount ended up ballooning to 12 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. And the beneficiary of that 12 billion shillings is not those counties that public participation was done on, Mr. Speaker. It is other counties and other constituencies, Mr. Speaker. The Budget and Appropriation Committee of this House has reached to the level where the chair of that committee, Mr. Speaker, now, members of parliament are going to his constituency for benchmarking, Mr. Speaker. Benchmarking. And all of us are supposed to receive the same amount of NGD, CDF, Mr. Speaker. What is making members to go and benchmark in a colleague's constituency, Mr. Speaker? Because the colleague is receiving more funding because of him being the chairman of the budget committee. Let's be honest to Kenyans. Let's tell Kenyans the truth, that he was sitting in an advantageous position of chairing that powerful committee of the House, which you could do skewed allocation of resources to his constituents, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, which member of parliament here can afford through his NGCDF to build classrooms, plaster them, put windows, put roof, put tiles in the classroom, cabros in the... Mr. Speaker, which member of parliament can afford to do that here? With a mere resources of 100 million shillings, Mr. Speaker, and advertise on Citizen Primetime News. Which member can do it? Can you raise up your hand if you can do that? None of the 349 members of this House, Mr. Speaker, can afford to do that. That can only be done by somebody who has access to bigger resources than any other member, Mr. Speaker. The Budget and Appropriation Committee did not start the other day. The distinguished leader of the majority party, Mr. Speaker, has been the chair of that committee for many years. And he has never done those things. I have been with him in this House. He has been very careful, and he has shared the resources of the country equitably, Mr. Speaker. I can say that without any fear of contradiction. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind members of this House, for those of us who have been here that time, who have been here for long, when the Budget Committee was chaired by Honorable, what was his name? The Member of Parliament from Embu, the Reverend Mutave Musimi, Mr. Speaker. Members of that committee did the same thing they have done the last 2 years. And one afternoon, the late Honorable Jacoyo Bidiwo came to the House, and he was seated exactly where I'm sitting today, and told the House the amount of money the Budget Committee put for themselves in the budget, Mr. Speaker. And the whole committee, that time, the membership of the Budget Committee was 52 or 51? 51. The whole committee was dissolved. And a new committee was formed, Mr. Speaker, based on what Honorable Jacoyo presented to the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if the Budget Committee does its business the way that the revamped committee has done, Mr. Speaker, the only option, the only solution to Mr. Speaker, that's available for this House is to convert the 349 members of this House into a Budget Committee. The whole House becomes the committee of the budget, Mr. Speaker. But as leadership and as parties, we have given responsibility and priorities to certain members. And especially on our side, and I'm sure even on Kenya Kwanza's side, we have picked one member per county from different regions and different counties, so that they can represent the interest of those regions and those counties and those constituencies. But Mr. Speaker, it looks like the committee now sits down and agrees on how to share the resources among themselves, forgetting that they are representing Kenyans and they are representing the whole House, Mr. Speaker, in that committee. As the majority leader has said, we will not desist, we will not hesitate to remove any member who behaves like the defunct committee, Mr. Speaker. I know there are remnants who have remained in that committee from the previous committee. I don't want to mention their names. We are giving them a warning that if you are not going to share the resources of the country equitably, Mr. Speaker, we will de-whip them. And we will discharge them from the committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I don't want to mention names, an old man who has started a polytechnic which has 10,000 people. And he talked about his polytechnic very passionately. And he said he's requesting the executive to give resources to that polytechnic. And the polytechnic has 10,000 students. Mr. Speaker, in their wisdom of lack of it, through the chair of the committee and the committee, gave that polytechnic in Bungoma 25 million shillings and gave another one in another place 250 million, which has only 2,000 students. Was it 10 million? Yeah. They gave only 10 million there, and the other one they gave 250 million shillings, Mr. Speaker. We are going to name them. Mr. Speaker, we will not allow, because this is the house that takes care of the interest of the people, of what is concerned to the people, is discussed here, Mr. Speaker. And this matter of skewed distribution of resources, Mr. Speaker. Look at what's happening in the road sector, Mr. Speaker. It's shameful. In the road sector, Mr. Speaker, there are counties that have not seen any cent to tarmac any road, Mr. Speaker. And there are counties that have been having money every year, every month to tarmac certain roads. In fact, very soon, if we continue like this in the next 5 years, there are counties that will donate tarmac roads to others. They will say, take this tarmac and put it somewhere in your county. You can return it back after 2 years. Just use it for 2 years. Because they don't know where to put it actually. Mr. Speaker, I support the majority leader. This country can only prosper. This country can only go far if, as the representatives of the people, we become equitable in sharing our resources, Mr. Speaker. And that is why the Constitution gave us a mandate to look. Otherwise, the Treasury should bring a budget here and we just approve it as they have done. Because the previous Treasury, the previous Ministry of Finance under the previous regimes used to do very dangerous things in terms of sharing of resources of the country. That is why the new Constitution and the framers of this Constitution felt it fit to bring that